Do you think you're being gaslit? Well, in today's episode, we are going to explore the mechanism of gaslighting. And I put this together because it's so relevant with what's going on in today's world. We have the Charlie Kirk assassination. We have school shootings. We have people talking about the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, arguing over Trump and the current administration and the state of our healthcare in our country and the state of our military. And we have so many heated discussions going on. And it seems that we're more divided than ever. And what those heated discussions can make us vulnerable to is potentially being gaslit. And so in today's episode, we're going to explore gaslighting. We're going to figure out exactly what it is. We're going to talk about the ways that people gaslight us, which is super interesting. We're going to go over how we can become vulnerable to being gaslit. And then most importantly, we're going to go over how to guard ourselves from being gaslit. And so stay all the way to the end because you're not going to want to miss that part of the episode. But first and foremost, let's cover what are we even talking about here? We hear this term gaslighting and gaslit. What does it mean? Because we can know terms and we can know words, but we don't always know what they mean specifically. And so I put together this example to really help us start to visualize and make it a little bit more tangible what gaslighting really means. So if you look at the actual word, you have gas and you have light. And so in this example, I want you to imagine I'm in my room right now, right? And someone, let's say a couple of military guys, storm into my room and they throw tear gas into my room, and they have strobe lights and they blast that into my room as well. And so what are they doing here? They're creating this smoke screen. They're creating this distraction. Why are they doing it? So that I cannot see them. So I can't interpret what information that they don't want me to see. And they don't want me to see that they're coming into my room. They don't want me to be able to defend myself. They don't want me to be able to react in a strong way so that, they don't accomplish their mission. And so whenever you think of gaslight, just think of a smoke screen essentially being put up in front of you, or if you're the one doing the gaslighting, which I don't recommend because it's very manipulative and it's very dark. But a lot of us are doing gaslighting subconsciously and don't even realize it. So this is why it's important that we really understand what it is. And so how do we see gaslighting happening in our conversations and in our country and across the globe? Well, one of the more organized efforts that people use gaslighting within is something called a smear campaign. And the best example for a smear campaign would be, imagine that you're in high school and you're being bullied by a group of people. And that group of people starts telling a lie about you. They start telling people that you did something that you did not do. And pretty soon, those rumors start to spread across the entire school. Now the whole school thinks that you did something that you didn't do. So, what's your response to that? You're the only one who knows the truth here, and everyone else seems to believe in a lie. And so this can really drive someone crazy, make you very emotional, make you very stressed out. And part of the reason that you're so stressed out is because you're now no longer a part of the group. Because the whole group believes something, they believe the lie, and you know something that they don't, that you know the truth. And so you've separated yourself out from the group, and you don't want to be separated from the group. You want to be a part of the group, because if you're separated from the group, it puts you in a lot more danger, for one, because if it's 30 people versus one, the odds that you're going to be able to win in that situation is very low. And it starts to drive you a little crazy. You start thinking, what if the lie is true? And so gaslighting can literally get to the point where you start believing the lie. There's this great example of this also with it's like a CIA experiment or an FBI experiment. I don't remember what organization it was, but the example was there was a teacher and instructor and a group of about 25 to 30 students all sitting in a room. And there was 24 agents who were assigned the task of passing around this piece of paper. And so 24 agents would pass around this piece of paper, one by one from each agent to the next. And on this piece of paper, there was a triangle. And the agents were assigned with the task of saying, this triangle is a circle. They were asked, okay, what shape is this? And they would all say, circle. Hand the paper over to the next agent. The next agent would say, circle. And this would go on and on and on until all 24 agents said it was a circle. And then there was one person in the room who was not an agent. It was a random person. And they looked at that piece of paper and they just heard everyone say it was a circle. And so they're looking at this shape. They know inherently that it's a triangle, but they do not want to stick out from the group, so much to the point where they're okay with saying it's a circle. So they said it was a circle. And so this is what can happen as a result of a smear campaign. If a lie spreads so viciously and in this wildfire sense, and it just spreads like crazy, people will start believing the lie, and pretty soon you'll be the only one who knows the truth. And being the only one who knows the truth sucks, because you start to feel like you're going insane. And so that's kind of the fundamental crux of gaslighting. It's what gaslighting is, and it's what gaslighting causes, and it's very destructive in its nature. And then there's also smaller forms of gaslighting that we see every single day. This includes lying. So people throughout conversations can lie to you. And this lie essentially creates this smokescreen, this distraction, and it hides the truth. And people can also do redirection. So let's say you're in a conversation and you're asking someone a probing question, something that they don't want to expose to you. Well, they can simply redirect the conversation. And instead of answering your question, they'll start asking you questions. And they'll start to point the spotlight back at you so that they don't have to expose their information. So people can lie. And this is a form of gaslighting. And people can redirect. This is another form of gaslighting. Another form of gaslighting is emotional manipulation. And emotional manipulation is kind of a byproduct of lying and redirection and deflection. Because let's say you're in an argument with someone and you accuse them of something, and instead of owning the accusation and owning up to what they did, they redirect it on you. And, one of the most common examples of this is, especially in like relationships between like a boy and a girl, is a boyfriend, let's say, accuses the girlfriend of doing something, and then the girlfriend, in her defense, starts to try to think of all the things in the past that have happened that the boyfriend did that were similar. So let's say that the boyfriend is accusing the girlfriend of flirting with another guy. Then the girlfriend's like, oh, but you flirted with Sally 2 months ago at that bar. Oh, I remember also you flirted with Donna in school, and you flirted with her. And so this essentially is a deflection technique where the girl is deflecting the accusation from the guy and redirecting the accusation back at the guy. And what this does is it manipulates the emotion of the guy. The guy starts to get very frustrated. He's like, what just happened? And that's what gaslighting is all about. It's like the guy's entering in my room with the tear gas and with the strobe light, and I'm like, okay, well, what just happened? And so everyone has been involved in some form of gaslighting at some point in their life. And this is essentially some of the fundamental ways that it shows up in our conversations with people. But why would someone choose to gaslight? Well, the primary reason someone wants to gaslight is so that they can hide information. They can also hide information in the form of motivation. Like, what is their motivation? A lot of people don't want you to know their true intention. Let's say that they have bad intentions and they have a kind of a sinister goal in mind. They don't want you to know what they're up to. So they can gaslight you and create a smoke screen so that you cannot see their true motivations. They also gaslight to make their opponent look weak, especially in a political sense. A lot of times political opponents want to make the other opponent look weak so that they can strip away their credibility and make them look weak, make them look less trustworthy. And essentially, gaslighting allows them to be able to do that. And then additionally, people will gaslight if they don't know how to navigate challenging conversations. This is often when you see a form of subconscious gaslighting going on and a lot of learned behavior that has become unconscious and subconscious, is when you're navigating a challenging conversation and you don't know how to deal with it, you just start to naturally gaslight the other person so that you don't have to deal with the challenging conversation or the challenging accusation or to hold yourself accountable to something that you've done. And so instead of owning up to your actions or, admitting the truth, you want to create this smokescreen. You want to distract the person from your true information that you're holding or your true motivations that you're holding. So gaslighting in itself is fundamentally rooted in falseness, in lies, and in deceit. And so it's very, very destructive for all of these reasons. Now, what makes you vulnerable to being gaslit, especially in conversations? Well, when you're in a conversation and you're talking really fast and you're very excitable, this will definitely make you prone to being gaslit because your emotional state is so high and you're so excitable that you're not processing all of the different information that is happening around you. Your sensory perception is limited. Your sensory perception is limited because you're talking so fast and you're trying to fit words and get them out as fast as you can instead of really focusing in and zoning in on the environment and what's happening around you. So talking fast will distract you from the true information that's happening right in front of your eyes. And so this ties directly into being highly emotional. And when you're highly emotional, you're in a high stress state, let's say, you're not going to be able to interpret information that's happening around you. A great example of this is, let's say you're sitting in a lecture and you're listening to a teacher talk about a lesson and you're having an anxiety and a panic attack. Okay, so you're sitting in the back of the classroom and you go through the whole 45-minute lecture and the whole time you were having an anxiety and a panic attack. Well, by the time you get to the end of that lecture, you're not going to have absorbed any of the information because your body and your mind is so concerned about the stress that you're experiencing that it's unable to process any other external information. The third thing that makes you very vulnerable is not listening. So you could be talking slow and you could be relatively content in your emotional state. But if you're not listening, you're not going to be absorbing the true information that's happening around you. And remember, gaslighting is all about creating a smokescreen, creating distraction. And so if you're not listening intently, you're not going to be able to catch when someone is speaking dishonestly and when someone's trying to manipulate you. You don't stand a chance. And so if you don't become a good listener, you're going to be very prone to being gaslit. Point blank, period. The fourth thing is being unaware that you're being gaslit in the first place, right? So all of these things can create that unawareness, but really being unaware of being gaslit is its whole different thing, because if you don't know what gaslighting is in the first place, and now you kind of do, and you're starting to understand it, props to you for watching this video. But if you don't know what gaslighting really is, you're not going to be able to identify it. It's like if you go out in the wilderness and you're trying to identify an oak tree, but you never learned how to identify an oak tree, you're not going to be able to go out there and find an oak tree because you don't know what it is. The next thing is having your guard down all the time. Something that I've been noticing, especially in America and in the United States, it's almost like everyone thinks that everything is sunshine and rainbows. Like we just go about our day and everything is just lollipops and gumdrops. It's like, no, we have to understand that there's real danger out there and that there's people who want to manipulate us. It might not be in a violent way, but it could be in a psychological way. It could be in a way where, they want to go out and wreak havoc on people, whether it's in relationships. They want to go out and betray people. They want to lie to people. They want to mislead people. And so having your guard down can leave you vulnerable to all of these things. And especially if you're interacting with a stranger, it's more important to have your guard up. And this doesn't mean not to go out and interact with people. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that when you go out and you actually do interact with people, you should have some sort of guard, some layer of protection to basically protect you against the world. The next thing is only having a surface level understanding of your own character and your own positions and your own worldview and your own perspectives, to create some synonyms here. So having a surface level understanding of your character, what does that mean? Well, we all have our own type of a character. We have different values and virtues and beliefs that we all hold. Beliefs kind of goes into positions. But our character is those values and those virtues. Okay? So if we have values and virtues that we want to become more like, then that affects directly our behavior. Our values and virtues are a precursor for our behavior. And so that's essentially what develops and molds our character. And if we don't have any values and we don't have any virtues and we haven't intentfully thought about those things, then this can lead us to having a really poor understanding of our own character. And then with positions and with worldviews, a great example of this is think of the last time that you wrote an essay. When's the last time that you wrote an essay? If you're an adult watching this, the last time you wrote an essay was probably in high school or in college. And essays become a thing of the past once we get out of school. But one of the really cool things about writing in itself, or writing an essay, is that we get to form our thoughts. You see, we have this landscape around us. I'm in this room right now, and I've formed this room into something that I enjoy. It's sort of become a landscape. I've got a whiteboard up. I've got paintings around my room. And I've created this landscape that I enjoy being a part of. But there's also a mental landscape. There's the world of our thoughts that's happening as well. And a way to mold and form the world of our thoughts is through writing and through intentfully thinking about those thoughts that are happening. And what happens if we don't intentfully process those thoughts is it starts to become sort of a landscape of the unknown. We don't really know what's going on up there. We don't want to know what's going on up there because it's so disorganized and it's so messy. It starts to become like a really dirty room. There's clothes laying everywhere. There's bottles that have been drunk. There's dirty plates and dishes all over the room. And those are representative of all the different thoughts that have entered our mind that haven't been properly processed. So in order for us to really get firm in our positions, we need to start to organize what's going on in our mental landscape. Another thing is being highly agreeable. I'm totally guilty of this because when I was a young man, a young boy, my character was not developed. My positions were not developed. And in order to avoid any type of confrontation in a conversation, I would just agree with people. I didn't want to talk about challenging things. I didn't want to poke and prod at things that I didn't know what were going to happen if I poked and prodded. It's like if you have something very, very sensitive to you that lives within your mental landscape. You don't know what's going to happen if you start to think about that. So we become very compartmentalized in that sense. We start to tuck these things away into our mental landscape and almost hide them from ourselves consciously. And then we bury them in our subconscious so that we don't have to deal with them. But the thing is we deal with them. Because if we simply leave that tucked away and hide it from ourselves, our behavior is going to be impacted by that. And we're going to start to become this person that we don't even recognize anymore. Because we've tucked and buried so much stuff away. So, number one, we've lost touch with ourselves. We've lost touch with our history and our past. Because if we get into the habit of doing that, and into the habit of essentially gaslighting ourselves, creating a smoke screen to ourselves, or on ourselves, then pretty soon our lives are going to become a living fog. And we're not going to know which way is up. Because we've buried so much. And so this is what happens. But this is a lot of times why people become highly agreeable is because they don't want to deal with those things. They don't want to have difficult conversations. They don't want to have challenging conversations. And they don't want to face those thoughts. So instead of having those confrontations, they just choose to agree with people. The next thing is having no process for making someone earn your trust. The United States is like the Oprah Winfrey of handing out trust to people. It's like, you get trust, you get trust, you get all my trust. And we just simply hand people our trust. You see this in dating especially. It's like, as soon as you meet someone, you just offer them up all of your trust. And so as soon as you get betrayed or something happens where you become hurt, it hurts even deeper because you gave them all of your trust. Your trust is valuable. If you think about it from a financial perspective, a family has a trust. They create this bubble of money and of wealth that is very valuable. And it's a trust because it's theirs. And so trust is yours. Like, it's your trust that you're offering as a gift. But people that come into your life, they don't just get that free gift. They have to earn that gift. So right now, we're just offering out way too much trust. We're just giving it out for free and to complete strangers who we've never met and we don't know anything about, and we don't know our own character and our own positions. And so as a byproduct of that, we don't know other people's character and their positions. And so it just creates this absolute mess and chaos within our country and within our relationships. So I know it gets pretty dark, right? But where is the light at the end of the tunnel? And this is really where the light comes in. And this is how we can start to defend ourselves from being gaslit. So the first thing is, when you're having conversations with people, I want you to go in there like you own it. You know, that doesn't mean to be selfish and to be hedonistic about it and just completely self-serving. But go in and own the conversation. You know, be there. Like, be there. Own your body, own your thoughts, own your mind and what's going on within you. So go in there and own the conversation. And be a part of the conversation. You know, try to offer yourself up. To offer all of your perceptions. You know, your ability to talk. You know, offer up stories about yourself and information about yourself that you feel comfortable sharing with this person. And then additionally, listen intentfully. So listen deeply to people. Listen to what they're really saying. You know, if you start to ask people, you know, about their story, for example, if you get to know their life story and you have that as sort of a base of your understanding of that person, when you start to listen deeply to what they're saying, I mean, you can't even listen deeply without knowing that about someone. If you don't know where someone comes from, where they were raised, who their parents were, who their siblings were, what their life was like growing up, you're not going to be able to listen deeply. So really, this boils down to surface level relationships. We have very surface level relationships, and we need to figure out how we can deepen those relationships and make them more meaningful. And one way to do that is to actually respect the personhood of your other person, the other person involved. And part of their personhood is their entire story. Because their entire story has led them to who they are today and why they believe what they believe. So owning the conversation, listening deeply to people, understanding what it takes to develop deeper relationships with people is very important as well. And then also in your conversations, talk and think slow. Don't be so excitable. You know, be a little bit more equanimous and content, and just slow down so you can process not only your own thoughts and what you want to say, but so you can actually take time to process what the other person is saying. If you don't do that, and you're trying to go super fast, you're going to miss out on a ton of information, and this leaves you extremely vulnerable to being gaslit. The next thing is observing your emotions and not reacting to them. So one way to do this is through meditation. And I don't meditate anymore, but I used to. And that was one way that I became very conscious of my emotions. And when you meditate, it essentially starts to develop this sense of, okay, there's another thing here. There's an awareness that's inherent to my being, and that's actually observing everything. And you start to separate that being and that sense of awareness and observation from the other things that are happening within your body. Sort of like your consciousness. And so that consciousness has the ability to observe the emotions. And what typically happens is we get into a pattern and a habit of simply reacting to our emotions. And this really depletes our ability from being able to be non-reactive to them. So while you're meditating, one of the best things to do is to imagine all of your thoughts and your emotions as clouds in a blue sky. So if you're having a thought right now in your mind, just closing your eyes and visualizing that thought as a cloud going across the sky. And then you have a new thought, and that's a new cloud that starts going across the sky. But just as the clouds start to come into your vision, they also start to fall away. And so our thoughts are constantly coming into our awareness, but eventually they pass away. They arise, and then they fall. And this is the same thing with our emotions. You might feel, okay, I'm like very content right now. I'm very relaxed. And that contentness and that relaxation is just simply a cloud going across in the sky. And this is staying for quite a long time because I'm still content and relaxed. So that's kind of how you can develop this external perspective of yourself. One that maybe you haven't explored before. And this will allow you the ability to be able to observe your emotions, to observe your thoughts, so that while you're in these conversations, you can see, oh my gosh, like I am getting highly emotional right now. My thoughts are going crazy. I don't even know which way is up. I need to just like center myself. I'm sorry. I just need to excuse myself for a second here. I'm very excited and excitable right now. Like I just need to go and I need to find myself. So that is a way in which you cannot be caught up in being gaslit. And the next thing is learning about gaslighting itself, which you're doing right now. Props to you. Good for you. Keeping your guard up. So not just blatantly trusting people, just flippantly, going out and thinking the whole world is sunshine and rainbows. Like, go out and yes, be a positive person. Be kind. Be happy. But you can also be those things and also keep your guard up. And part of what we're going to be learning on this channel is how do we go out, be kind, be respectful, and be positive, but also have the skills and the competencies required to be able to see the world in a way that we can guard ourselves and protect ourselves. The next thing is gaining a deep understanding of your positions and your character. This is very important. And so, kind of like we talked about earlier with your character, start to write out, grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to write values on the top of the paper. After you write values on the top of the paper, I want you to write number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I want you to go to Google, and I want you to look up and search what are examples of values. You'll find dozens of resources, and I want you to look at those lists and those resources, and I want you to choose the top 5 values that are most important to you in order. So number 1 is the most important. Number 2 is the second most important. Number 3 is the third most important. Okay, so I want you to do that with values. Now I want you to do that same thing with virtues. So write virtues on your piece of paper. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go to Google, look up examples of virtues, find a list of virtues, and choose the top 5 that are the most important to you. In the order. Number 1 is the most important, 2 is the second most important, 3 is the third most important. And the reason that you're going to do this is because this is going to give you a roadmap for your behavior. So let's say that the first virtue that you chose was respect. You really value respect. Okay, well, let's get a deeper understanding of respect. This is what I want you to do with all the different values and virtues. So we have a few different definitions here for respect. So it says to feel or show deferential regard for, esteem, or admire. So this is an interesting form of respect because it is respect for someone who we look up to. So, the sentence here says all the other scholars respect her. She is esteemed or admired in her field. So, there's people in our lives who we esteem or admire, and they deserve our respect. Okay, so that's one form of respect, right? So it's kind of seeing the relationship, because there's people that we esteem and we admire, right? But there's also people who are just like strangers. So we have to understand that respect is kind of a relational thing, and it's based upon the circumstances. So you're going to respect a stranger in a different way than you respect someone that you look up to, or how you're going to respect someone that you love. So it's pretty contextual, but it's important that we understand what it actually means. So the next definition is to avoid interfering with or intruding upon. Please respect my privacy. This is another great example. And this is another place where people are being extremely flippant about the information that they reveal to other people. They're being very flippant with their trust. They're saying, here, I trust you fully, even though you're a stranger, even though I never met you, even though I know nothing about your life story. I'm just going to tell you everything about my life, and I'm not really going to hold anything back. People are very flippant with information. But a form of respect is, let's say you're having a conversation with someone and you ask them a question and they're like, no, actually, that's personal information. I don't wish to share that with you at this time. And then something you could say back is, oh, I respect that. Totally. And then the same goes for you, right? Like if someone's probing you and asking you a question that you don't want to share, it's like, oh, I don't want to share that with you actually. Like that's personal information. Like the other person can show respect by being like, yeah, okay, I respect that. Totally. No problem. And then just continue the conversation and don't act like it's weird. You're like, oh my gosh, she doesn't want to share something with me. This is so weird. It's like, no, it's not weird at all, actually. Because there's levels to relationships. Relationships can deepen and strengthen over time. And so at one point, they can be weaker and more shallow than they once were. And at those weaker and more shallow points, like you're not going to want to share as much of yourself with that person. But as they start to strengthen and develop, it's like, okay, I'm starting to really trust this person. They've earned my trust. And I'm going to start to share more of myself with them. I'm going to tell them about all these different things. So that is one example of respect. I highly recommend you go and do that with all the different virtues and values that you chose and start to think them through. Maybe write an essay about them. So the next thing is the positions. Again, another thing that you can do is write a persuasive essay about your beliefs about the Second Amendment, for example. Go and write an essay about why you think the Second Amendment should be and should always be within the Constitution. And then go a little bit deeper. Let's look at, okay, what are the opposing positions? And try to argue their position for them. Because if you get better at arguing their position than they are at arguing their position, chances are if you get into a debate with them, you're going to be able to properly navigate that debate in a skillful way. And so if you can properly navigate a debate in a skillful way, I mean, you're going to be pretty good at figuring out whether or not someone's trying to gaslight you. Becoming less agreeable, and a way to do this is to simply just play a role. Like, if you're extremely highly agreeable, that starts to become sort of hardwired into your neurology. And so in order to kind of break out of that pattern, you kind of got to role play a little bit. You got to kind of fake it till you make it. And so one way that you could do that is through playing devil's advocate. You can play devil's advocate with your own thoughts and your own perspectives, just like we talked about in that essay. Play devil's advocate. Argue against your own positions on things. Argue for the opposing side. This will help you to become less agreeable. And just being and disagreeing with people in general, once you say, I don't agree with that, and you see the other person's reaction, and it's like, oh my gosh, they didn't punch me in the face, they didn't kill me, they didn't hurt me. And it's like, okay, now I realize, okay, I can disagree with people and it not be something crazy. And my safety is not in any way disrupted by just simply disagreeing with people. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, is make people earn your trust. Start viewing your trust like it's a gift, like it's something valuable, like it's something worth protecting, because it is. And stop flippantly going out and just offering people up your trust. So and it's important to kind of point out, like, how do people actually earn your trust? Right? Like that's not super obvious. So let's say that you met someone new, and that new person says, hey, dude, they're trying to be a good friend. They're like, oh, I know you're going to be out of town for the next couple of weeks. Like, do you want me to go over and mow your lawn for you? Like, I'll totally do that for you, dude. And so you're out of town for a couple of weeks. The guy comes over and he mows your lawn for you. And while he's mowing your lawn, he runs over one of your flowers in your flower bed. And it's a really nice flower. It's a really nice bush. And he's really upset about it. But, instead of like trying to hide it, he just calls you right away. And he's like, hey, dude, I was trying to do this nice thing for you. I was mowing your lawn, and I just wanted to do something kind. But, man, I accidentally ran over one of your flowers in your flower bed. Like, dude, I'm really sorry. I feel terrible about it. And I'm actually going to just go buy you another one from the flower shop. And then I'm gonna go grab it, and then I'm going to come back here. I'm going to plant it for you. Like, I feel so bad. That's how someone earns trust, because he could have very well just gone on, maybe tried to hide that he did it in the first place. And maybe he just went to the flower shop and then, redid it and made it look like it never happened and hid that information. Or he could have just hid that information, not told him about it, and just left the flower completely destroyed. And, just hope that he doesn't notice or get to the point where he just starts blaming it on someone else. And, just hiding that information so that he doesn't realize that, oh, this guy mowed over my flower. And so it's like after that conversation that the friend was like, I'm going to go, I'm going to call you up. I'm going to call up my friend, let him know what happened, be honest and upfront. I'm going to tell him I'm going to try to repent for my sins. I'm going to do some form of penance for my sin. and I'm gonna try to make it up to you. And so he does it, right? And he says this to the friend, and the friend's like, dude, you just told me information that you didn't even really have to tell me. Like, you were going over and doing a nice thing for me, and I really appreciate it. And I don't really care about the flower, to be honest with you, man. So don't even worry about it. Yeah, thank you so much for telling me that. I'm really starting to trust you and like you. And so in that way, the friend earned the other friend's trust. So that's kind of how you go about earning trust, is through not hiding information and being honest with people about small things like that can happen. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And if we try to hide those mistakes from other people, subconsciously we're going to start trusting them less and less. So I really hope you enjoyed this video about gaslighting. Really I wanted to provide sort of a comprehensive analysis on gaslighting. What it is, first and foremost, so that we can identify it when we're interacting with people, and then also how people use it so that we can get even better at identifying it within our conversations and within our interactions with the world. Why someone would do it, so that when they are doing it, we can start to kind of figure out, okay, why is this person gaslighting me right now? Like, what are they hiding? We always know that someone's hiding something when they're gaslighting us. And additionally, like, what makes us vulnerable to being gaslit, so that we can see those things within ourselves and we can start to make adjustments and make improvements. And ultimately, like, what are the improvements that we can make? And if you master these things right here, you're good. Like, you're not going to get, like, you're still vulnerable, of course, but you're going to be the person who is least probable to being gaslit. All right, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Love to hear from you about your feedback on the topics that we discussed today. Have you been gaslit before? Like, if you could drop an example of how you were gaslit. I don't want to know the personal information of the person who did it. I could care less about who did it to you. But if you could just drop the example down below so we can all kind of learn from that example, I think that'd be fantastic. But any other thoughts you want to share, feel free to share them in the comments. I will read every single comment. And we'll see you on the next video.